Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and today we are talking about some huge news we just got about Splatoon Raiders that seems to have even further implications about Nintendo's summer. So we just learned about the Splatoon Raiders release date, we got a new trailer, we have new website details, and the more and more I look into this, the more and more excited I get about this game. There appears to be some very cool stuff going on here that I think a lot of you might be surprised about that, yeah, it has me very excited about. So we're going to be diving into some discussion about Splatoon Raiders, but also, because of what we're hearing about regarding Splatoon Raiders, this is supporting a big leak we've been talking about regarding Nintendo's summer lineup and beyond. It's supporting it, looks like, and it seems to be aligning with how I've been believing the year is going to shake out, which does have implications about what's to come this June, which may very well be what's been reported. Star Fox. So we have some interesting stuff to get into today. But before going forward, I have this goal, so if you do find yourself enjoying my videos and you haven't subscribed already, I would very much appreciate you subscribing. But first, just talking a little bit about the trailer, there are some interesting things I noticed. One, just that introduction screen where you can customize your character. It reminds me a lot of Splatoon 3, so clearly there is that coding there. This does feel like a Splatoon 3 adventure. But it is said that this is a single-player focused adventure, which was expected, but now they're telling us that's what it is. However, there is an asterisk there, and we'll be getting to that, because that asterisk might actually be a pretty big, cool deal. But we see that one of the trio from Deep Cut are powering the bot that fights alongside you throughout the adventure. You are fighting the Salmonids, they are back here, and what's interesting about the Salmonids is that the way they're dressed, it almost looks like they are from this area. It's a very junk-infested area, and it almost looks like they are indigenous to the Spirelight Islands. And so from a lore perspective, we could be seeing where the Salmonids come from, and their motives, and why they've done what they've done in prior games. And so there's some interesting stuff going on there from a story perspective, but also we see that you can expand upon your abilities, you can gain different moves, like there's this really cool dash axe attack that I see, you can also set up a barrier. So there's some interesting things that you can build upon throughout the world, and we also see that the map expands, there are different areas, but it looks like base camp is almost like a warp point because we see that little grapple that throws you elsewhere. And so this is looking like a pretty fun game. But I got even more excited about this game once I took a look at the website. So here we are. What you'll notice is that digitally, the game is being priced at $49.99, $50 USD. A reminder that the typical price for full Nintendo titles this generation has been $70. But we've been continually seeing more and more exceptions, and Nintendo did make that announcement not too long ago that they are going to be pricing their titles cheaper digitally. So I'm making the assumption here that physically this game is probably going to be $60, which is still cheaper than the typical Nintendo title, the typical full Nintendo title now, but digitally it'll be $50. And so I do think this comes with the implication that Splatoon Raiders isn't a giant game like Splatoon 3, which doesn't entirely surprise me. When we first saw the game, that was kind of the impression that I was given. They do call it a Splatoon spin-off. But still, from what I'm seeing of Splatoon Raiders, it looks like a really fun campaign here, and it could have a lot of replayability. We go back to that skill tree and those power-ups they showed. This game may be designed in a way with a lot of replayability in mind, so there actually could be a lot of bang for your buck for this one. But just looking at the cover art here, I love the look, I love the colors, the design of it. We can see the junkyard in the background in this jungly area with the waterfall, beautiful stuff. But then also we see all the Salmonids in the background. It just kind of makes them feel like they are indigenous to this area. It's kind of like you crash land on this island and there are these wild cannibals. That's kind of like the motif, except it's the Salmonids in the Spirelight Islands. But also just taking another look at these screenshots here, something that I didn't point out about when you're styling yourself at the beginning is that all the hairstyles have a whole bunch of junk, like they're going for this junk kind of feel. Like you look at the gun here, like it's tied together with rope and tape, and you're barefoot in the beginning, your hair is pinned together with rope and a claw shot or hook shot of some kind. Like it's really funny how they are putting that together there. I really like the personality and the detail. This is one of the power-ups I mentioned earlier This is creating kind of like some sort of passive force field, looks like a barrier. When looking at this screenshot, I am wondering about some other things. Like I see this little device here. I wonder if there's going to be a minigame tied to that, or perhaps here it almost looks like an arcade, but there is kind of like this weird joystick that looks kind of like a hook, and we see a fishing rod here. Previously, we have theorized that maybe there might be some fishing involved tied into a minigame looking for treasure. We do know that seeking treasure is kind of like the big goal here, so there might be something to that idea. This could all just be aesthetics, and there's no sort of other minigame embedded into this, but still it's interesting little details we're seeing here. And here are just a few more screenshots. We do drill out gems like this for treasure, which is interesting. Also, from the trailer, I'm reminded that there is this part where we see kind of like a statue of a salmonid, suggesting that there's like a history here, further supporting the idea that this is where the salmonids are from. I like the details I'm looking at here. Like, this is some cool stuff we're looking at. But let's read the description, because there's something else that's an even bigger deal here. Splat scores of enemies and hunt for treasure in a single-player focused action shooter. Play as a mechanic working with Deep Cut, a trio of swashbuckling musicians, and venture out into the mysterious Spirelight Islands. Customize your character, kit yourself out with mechanical gadgets and ink-splattering weapons, and take on waves of foes called salmonids as you raid the islands for salvage. This is mainly a single-player adventure, but you won't be alone. One member of Deep Cut will raid alongside you in a powerful bot. And here's the big deal. You can also join with up to 3 other players online or via local wireless. So, I believe the website here is actually confirming cooperative play for a single-player focused adventure. So, in other words, the adventure isn't necessarily single-player. It's not a multiplayer kind of game like Splatoon 1 through 3, and perhaps they're putting in that clarification here. This is a campaign. There's no team deathmatch or Splatfest or anything like that, but it does look like you can form up to a team of 4 to play through the experience of Splatoon Raiders. And that's really interesting. I've been really itching for some cool cooperative games lately, and I've even been theorizing, if you've been watching my videos, that this supposed Star Fox title that's coming out this summer as well, to start the summer actually, that's what has been reported by the leaks from Nate the Hate and Video Games Chronicle. We'll see. I've been theorizing that also could be a cooperative experience, because we've heard that it'll have online play. Which brings me to the final big point from the Splatoon Raiders news. The game is coming out July 23rd. So this is the major July title, even though it's a budget title. There's another budget title that's coming out early July, I believe July 2nd, and that's Rhythm Heaven. And so what I find interesting about this is that last week I put out a video where I looked at all the leaks that have been going on, the ones that seemed reputable, and tried to piece together how Nintendo's year is going to shake out, and I put together this image here that was in the video. Now, to point out the context, because if you watched the video you would know, I wasn't saying these are all the games that are coming out in the year. I simply put that graphic because it was aesthetically pleasing, and I was highlighting the major titles that could be coming out per month throughout the year. So for example, I talked about how Rhythm Heaven, we already knew when I made that video that it would be coming out in July, but I didn't use it in the graphic. I highlighted how Splatoon Raiders, based off the recent ratings and the reported leaks, made sense for July, and that has just been confirmed. So this is kind of a big deal, because right now, we don't have any other games coming out for May beyond Yoshi and the Mysterious Book, and Nintendo's actually been operating in a way where they're usually putting out at least 2 releases per month. Usually one is kind of minor, maybe like a Switch 2 edition or a budget title, kind of like Rhythm Heaven, and then they'll have something a little bit bigger come out as well. And so only having Yoshi in May, still not announcing something for June, which is a popular release month for Nintendo, and then having these 2 different games come out in July, I think it actually very strongly supports the idea that Nintendo's going to have a very quick turnaround here and announce a new Star Fox for June, as has been reported by multiple outlets here. Like, Nintendo could have announced Splatoon Raiders today to come out as the big June title. They didn't. It's coming out July. June is still a mysterious month here where they haven't given us what's coming out then. Some people are going to predict that nothing is coming out then. But I'm kind of thinking here that these are the same people, and I'm sure there are exceptions, of course, everyone has different kinds of opinions, but I feel like a lot of people who are thinking this are also the same people who assumed that because we were getting Rhythm Heaven in July that there wouldn't be something else like Splatoon Raiders. I talked about how Splatoon Raiders made sense to come out in July even though we were also getting Rhythm Heaven, because that's how Nintendo's been operating. At least one key title per month, but oftentimes there is an additional secondary title. That's how Nintendo's been operating throughout the Switch 2 era. And so maybe June doesn't have a secondary title, but I gotta think there's gonna be at least one title, and all the reports have been indicating that it's going to be Star Fox, so this announcement today supports that. And also, from what we've heard of the leaked Splatoon Raiders, it had us believing Splatoon Raiders would be a July title, and so this has me more confident in the other things about the leaks from Nate the Hate, such as Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave coming out a little bit later, perhaps August, which also we've gotten a rating for just like Splatoon Raiders, so that does seem to make a lot of sense. Things are lining up here. But then we heard about the various Switch 2 editions, like a Pikmin 4 Switch 2 edition, a Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Switch 2 edition, something about Switch Sports, and then there's what we heard about for later on in the year, such as the Ocarina of Time remake and the Dustbloods. Now, some of you might be wondering about Luigi's Mansion 4. That has not been reported by Nate the Hate or Video Games Chronicle. It's something that I think makes a lot of sense. We have heard a rumor about a Luigi's Mansion amiibo, which leads me to think it can't be that far off the amiibo, and if the amiibo's not that far off, there should also be a game, and Next Level Games, the developer of the Luigi's Mansion series, should be coming out with a game pretty soon, and it has at least been reported by both Nash Weedle and Special Nick that Luigi's Mansion is in development. Now, release timing has not been reported by anyone. It might not be this year, but if we're not getting 3D Mario this year, and if most of this stuff is coming out during the summertime except for Ocarina of Time Remake and the Dustbloods, then I feel like that would be an ideal title to really fill out the lineup here. So that's my thinking. So far, the theory is holding together here. Something else fascinating about this is that it does seem to support the idea that there probably won't be a Nintendo Direct until June. Like, think about this for a moment. We just got a pretty significant bit of news about Splatoon Raiders, but in the website, as I pointed out, it does seem to be indicating some form of cooperative play, which seems like a pretty extensive, significant feature that has not really been highlighted yet. It would make sense to highlight that before the game comes out. Now, this is April. We're in the second half of April. I expect this is the last time we'll hear about Splatoon Raiders for this month. They could always just give us another news update in May or June, when we're thinking we'll finally get that big direct in June. So it would make a lot of sense to give us another look at Splatoon Raiders in June in a big direct, highlight the cooperative play, another feature to this game to get even more people involved. But if Nintendo also has kind of like some sort of presentation, maybe a partner showcase for third-party games this month, or just a series of announcements regarding third-party games this week and next week, and also Nintendo closes out the month, I hope this week, but we'll see, that Star Fox reveal for late June, that also would make a lot of sense, because then if they have a direct in the first half of June, they can highlight Star Fox again as well before it comes out. I also imagine that would have kind of like a big marketing campaign from the moment it is officially announced to when it comes out. Basically, throughout the month of May, it would be getting some heavy marketing, which would make a lot of sense because by May, the movie will have been out in most regions where Star Fox is featured, which would function as really great promotion for the series. And who knows, maybe Nintendo surprises us on Nintendo Classics with something like a Star Fox Adventure or a Star Fox Assault before we get to play Star Fox for Switch 2 in June, which maybe also has cooperative play. Again, that's just a theory based on it just kind of making sense on what we've heard of online play, and also there being some co-op in Star Fox Zero, although not a lot of it. At least it looks like Splatoon Raiders is getting cooperative play, looks pretty fun, is at a budget price, and is coming out this July, which supports the grand theory, the grand leak about everything else we're thinking for this year. These are exciting times, I would say, but what do you all think? Let me know in the comments below. This is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I will see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.